In today's lesson, we get a reminder not only of why we carry our firearm, but also our first aid equipment. Today's video is made possible thanks to the generous sponsorship of companies like LuckyGunner.com. Please head to LuckyGunner.com and thank them for being a sponsor of Active Self-Protection. Hi everyone, this is John with today's Active Self-Protection lesson out of San Antonio in Texas in the United States. We actually get to see helicopter footage of an officer-involved incident there. And there's a lot going on here. This one happened in February, but the footage just got released the other day. So let's take a watch and come back and learn some lessons. Go read the news stories linked in the description and you'll see that officers pulled this guy over, he gave them a fake name, and then he ended up taking off. There's been an extended chase. There's a link in the description to the longer video with them just chasing him around town. And then it picks up here. We do have audio from the helicopter, so let's listen in.
Heads up, guys. He looks like he's getting out. He's under the floorboard, guys. Under the floorboard. Be careful. Be careful. Under the floorboard, guys. Watch it. Taking up a defensive position, guys. Shots fired. Shots fired. Troop down. Troop down. Let's get EMS en route. Troops down. Got a handgun. Troops down. It's gonna be a small caliber weapon. Small caliber weapon. Either 9mm, something like that, to EMS, and he shot in the right arm. 107, you got an ETA on EMS?
107, standby, we're doing ETA.
7 to the troops, I think we're going to try to land and medevac him ourselves, copy that?
107, will you be taking them to SAMC so that we can notify them?
University.
Confirming you said University?
University, San Antonio. And if you could find out what frequency their usual pad uses.
Boy, that is harrowing stuff all the way around. I got a poll question for you out of this one. Do you carry a tourniquet as part of your everyday equipment? I most certainly do every single day in my ankle IFAK, but I'm wondering what percentage of our followers, of our subscribers do. So hit that poll, let me know if you do or if you aren't. I'm interested in this one. Out of this particular lesson, I want to think about some significant things to learn out of here. Number one, about reaction times. Number two, about the difference in mission between police officers and private citizens and how that drives how we do things. And number three, the incredible importance of having our first aid equipment and skill to use it with us. So let's think here first of all about the difference in mission between law enforcement and private citizens, right? You know, we say a mission drives a gear train, also drives our tactics, our techniques, and our procedures. These law enforcement officers have to stop this guy, have to pursue him, have to keep going with him. As a private citizen, we wouldn't do this, though there's some lessons for us here as well. Now, this officer gets out of the car, and what are you gonna see here real quick is you notice that he's trying to take this guy at gunpoint. Now, we might, with looking back, you know, with the 2020 hindsight and say, gosh, just shoot him through the door, shoot him through the door. I get that, and you could shoot him through the car door. The car door is concealment, not cover. However, the officer doesn't know that here. He doesn't know exactly what's in the guy's hands, and of course, a reasonable, objective evidence of a deadly threat is necessary here if the officer is going to pull the trigger, and that's the same for an officer as it is for a private citizen. But I want to recognize the fact that the officer is trying to take this guy into custody. He's not trying to shoot him. He's not just, you know, getting after him and trying to be trigger happy. Instead, what he's trying to do is to de-escalate the situation and intimidate the guy into giving up. This has been a long, drawn out process. He has threatened a lot of people, but let's think about how long he has to react here. As everything starts to go here, we're going to see that the guy pops up, gun in hand, and puts a shot on him in only about 0.3 seconds. Now, if you know exactly what you're going to do, if the officer is going, I'm going to shoot this guy the second he pops up, well, then he might be able to respond in something like 0.25. However, to see what he's doing, to see what's in his hands, and to actually make a response to that will take him somewhere around a half a second. He simply didn't have time here. He got beat to the drop by action beating reaction. And that's the reality of things. Your reaction to actually process the deadly threat, if you don't see it coming in advance, is going to take longer than that. And so our bad guy gets the first shot off. Now, it hits, but it hits him in his right arm. Thankfully, our bad guy moved low and left, and so therefore it wasn't a deadly shot. However, notice here that our officer does have the fibs factor. Fibs factor affects good guys too. Remember, that's fudge, I've been shot. That when you get hit, it hurts and things start going crazy. Now, of course, this officer, if he's going to stay in the fight, is one of those that's going to have to transition to his support side. So we do support shooting. When we talk about as defensive shooters, we do defensive shooting with our support hand only, because you might need to get it. In this case, the officer definitely did. Now, of course, thankfully, the officer here had backup, and he had a buddy who was coming with a gun as well, in this case, a rifle. And so he is going to come in and get in the fight. But what I want to notice here as well is you notice the officer's rolling down the embankment. And that roll, if you watch it a couple of times, is not a lazy roll, or it's not just a momentum roll. He is purposefully rolling down into that embankment to get himself some cover. And that lesson here reminds us all about emotional fitness. Yes, he's shot, but he's still in the fight, trying to get himself to a good spot so he can get back after this guy. Now, thankfully, the guy is done, and the reason he's done is the guy's partner showed up. And the partner shot him one time. Now, you want to know why he shot him one time? Because that shot put him down and ended the threat. Once again, police officers are trained and they're professional, and if they have to shoot someone, they shoot enough to stop the threat and no more. And you can see the gun there on the ground. This guy got put on the ground, and the officer did an excellent job of that. A shot with a rifle can be much more effective than a shot with a handgun. He was shot in the abdomen, still worked. Now, here's a commonality. If you have to stay in the area of a downed attacker, get his tool away from him. And the officer did an excellent job of that. Kicked that tool out of the way, kicked the firearm out of the way that guy had shot the other officer with. And of course, if you have to stay in the vicinity of a downed attacker, you better take their tool away and get it away from them in case they were to pop back up. In this case, this guy isn't a threat anymore. He took the on-ramp temperature challenge here. But notice as well that the officer that stopped him with a rifle. Of course, if you're going to get in a gunfight, you'd much rather have a long gun than a handgun. And a rifle shot from 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 yards is really no big deal. But a handgun shot at those kind of distances, significant deal. So excellent work by the officer with his rifle, put the threat down. And then they're going to get after the first aid. And I think this is an incredibly important part of this lesson. Notice that the officer is self-administering the tourniquet after the threat is over. He recognized he has to fight the fight after the fight. And the first fight after the fight is your physical health. So he's trying to put a tourniquet on. And recognize that you should definitely carry a tourniquet, a stout first aid kit. I carry mine with me every day. I cannot recommend it enough. I carry mine on my ankle. You figure out how to carry yours on you. That should include a tourniquet. And notice that he has to put this tourniquet on one-handed. So this is why I say, the Committee for Tactical Combat Casualty Care only authorizes 2 tourniquets right now. The Combat Application Tourniquet, the CAT, and the SOF-T, the Special Operation Forces Tourniquet. I particularly like the wide. Other tourniquets might make a good use for a secondary tourniquet or something like that, but tourniquets that require you to have 2 hands to put on, things like the RATs, things like the SWAT-T, aren't very useful in this particular instance. And so that's why I always recommend a great one with a windlass, like a CAT or a SOF-T are the ones to do. Now, thankfully, the other officer is able to get in there quickly. They put that tourniquet up high and tight. I don't care where he's shot in the hand. Get that tourniquet up as high as you possibly can and on tight. It's not going to be on for a couple hours. That's fine. Can't recommend all of us enough to get a first aid skills class, to have those skills, to have practiced them a couple times, to know how to get your tourniquet out and to get some help. Now, thankfully, this guy had a helicopter present, and they made all of the follow-ups the right way. But you may not have that. It may take you longer to get to the airport, or from not with the airport, but rather with the hospital, in order to get the kind of help that you need. Thankfully, this police helicopter was there. They could transport him this very long distance. But recognize that you are on your own for a significant amount of time as a civilian, as a non-sworn, and plan accordingly. Have your first aid skills around. Recognize you're going to have to stop the bleed and get to the hospital on your own. Recognize that the gunfight, the other cops aren't going to be there in time to fight your gunfight. Didn't happen here as well. All things considered, I think this officer was a professional. He did a fantastic job. He was really just in a bad spot. You can't win every fight that you're in. Thankfully, he had a partner to win it for him. And thankfully, he had the presence of mind to stay emotionally present, use his tourniquet, save his life, and his partner helped him as well, and they covered their asp.